Hi everyone, in today's lesson we're going to look at Microsoft Access, how to create basic tables, reports, queries and then some navigational forms. We're also going to look at how to create a macro that enables us to open up a form automatically. So let's get going. So I have Microsoft Access opened up and I just want to create here a blank database. So I'm just going to double left click there. Once you get in, it automatically creates this table for you. So I'm going to create my own table. So I'm just going to right click this table, tab here and go close. Now in the create tab up here at the top has everything that you need in terms of designing the table, the queries, the forms and the reports, and also the macro that we're going to do at the end. So the first thing I'm going to do here is create the table. I'm going to use table design because it allows us to set up the table first and then enter the data. Okay, so I'm going to just maybe create a customer table first of all. And what are the things you might need in here? You might need the customer ID. So let's pop that in. And anytime I separate text, ideally, just for good database design and practice, we're just going to put an underscore under each one. Now, the ID, I'm going to have it that it's going to be an auto number so that it's automatically going to create a number for every single customer. And this is good, for example, if you had two Marys, okay, that you're customers, it's going to be difficult then to identify which Mary is which unless they have a unique identifier, which is their ID. We also set that as the primary key. And then we move on. Okay, let's just pop in a few fields. We won't pop in too many. First name, last name. You probably put all the address in details, etc. They might have a credit limit as well. Let's pop that in. Let's just put and they can be all short text, etc. Now the credit limit's probably to do with money. Okay, so you can either put a number. I usually put it as currency. That's a number with whatever currency then with a euro symbol. Let's put the address in here. Okay, and the county. Okay, all straightforward, all right. Now there is a nice little feature you can have it in here. Obviously, you know, instead of the user having to type in the county, we could have maybe a little drop down with all the counties. Take me a little bit of time to enter them all in, but it can show you how to start it up. You can see here down here in the general tab as well, there's loads of stuff you can put in terms of validation rules, etc. For an example, if you wanted them to enter in, not so much for the customer, but for an employee, if you wanted them to enter in a PPS number and you wanted that it's going to be exact PPS number with whatever digits, you could assign a validation rule there that sets that up. So let's just do a quick drop down here for the county, very easily. How you do this is you come in here to the data type and we're going to go to the lookup wizard. Loads of stuff, you can have a yes or no checklist, you can put a hyperlink, attachment, whatever you want, but I'm going to use the lookup wizard. Here it's asking you, do you want to look up from another table? I have no other table created, so I'm just going to type in the values that I want. If I had another table, maybe I could link the data here with another table by clicking the lookup field. Okay, here you're going to list all the counties. Okay, I'm not going to put them all in, but this would be good if you wanted ideally to save a person time from entering in data, and especially if it was a list of items, you could put it in very easily in here. Let me just put in 4 and let's keep going. Okay, so Galway, Dublin, Cork, and we'll just put in Longford. Alright, so I've just put in 4 examples. I click next. Are you okay with the label? I am. I click finish. Now nothing actually happens in here. Alright, I'm going to save this table, and the shortcut for saving the table is Control and S, and I'm going to call this customer underscore T or customer T, customer table. Okay, and I click OK. Now, all I've done is set up the columns in the table, all right, but I haven't entered in any data. In order to get into the design view of the table, we're going to come up here to the design tab, we're going to click the view tab, okay, and actually we need to go into the data sheet view in order to enter in the data. So we're going to click that. Now, if you use your tab key and then type in whatever details, and 20 euros, and you can see they put in the euro symbol already, and ideally you could change that to pound symbols down at the bottom in the different views. So if you want to go back and change it, go to the design view. Let's just pop in details here. Okay, and now you see the lookup wizard is available, and now I'm going to pick Galway. Alright, so just making that a little bit more flexible in terms of the user design of this database, it looks a little bit better. Okay, and I might just pop in another person as well. And you can see it's automatically creating that number for me because I've set it up as an auto number. Okay. And that's Galway, and we'll put this one Dublin. All right, and let's save the table, Control and S. Now I might want to save the database as well. So let's just right click this tab and go close because I'm finished with that table. Let's click and save the database as well. And you can call it anything, just call it shop, whatever you're doing it for. I'm just going to save it and save it on my desktop. All right, so that's the table done. Ideally, you do all the tables. So if you open up your table, that's how it looks, okay? If you want to change any columns, you go back into the design view and you can change anything in there, okay? And then right click here to close it, or you can close it further over here, etc., wherever you want. Now, let's create a query, okay? So we can create the query using query design as well. So what I like to do is create the query in the table using table design, query design, and then the forms using the wizards. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to query design, and it goes, what table you want to use for your query? I've only got the one table, so I'm just going to add that and close it. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to create a query that pulled out maybe all the surnames that have Smith in it, so I might just include the customer ID, the first name and the last name. Okay, now I've just included these fields, but ideally all I needed here was the last name. Okay, so right under last name, okay, and how I brought those in is I just double left clicked up here and it's brought them in. All right, if you don't want to do that, you can left click and drag, or you can come down here and click the drop down and click it. There's three ways there of bringing these fields in here into your query. So double left click, or click in here, or drag and drop. All right, so right here under last name and right under criteria, I can write the word Smith. And when I tab across, it puts in inverted commas. So that's going to pull out every last name that has Smith in it. In order to test this, I can come up here to this button that says run. And you can see here it's pulled out everything that had the condition Smith. If you change the view here and you see how it's written in SQL, you can see if I was to write it here in SQL, it says select from the customer table the following fields, okay, where the customer last name is equal to the following condition Smith. So if you ever have to write an SQL statement, this is how you'd write it. But query, it's the same thing. It's just a query when you're doing it in Microsoft Access. So in order to run it, that's what happened. And that's my query created. A very simple query. So let's save that one. And let's just call it last name Smith. Now you might want to maybe create a query that had a credit limit, maybe an employee with a certain date. It's up to yourself. So we're just going to click OK, and that's my query created. So I'm going to right click and close that. The reports are very easy to create. We just come up here to create and we go to the wizard, report wizard. Okay, now ideally if you had to obviously give any details on your customers, or you know what I mean, the accounts department said, look, we want a list of all your details of your customers, you'd run a report. Okay, so here I'm just grabbing my customer table because that's the only one I've done. I want to bring all the fields over, so I'm going to select this second option. I'm going to go next. Here's it showing you, do you want any grouping? No, I'm happy enough with that. Ascending order, I'm happy enough. Next, next, and finish. And it just generates a report. And that's all I had to do. I've only got 2 people here, but again, it's created. So I'm just going to save this report, okay? And I'm just going to close that, okay? And that's it all done. So we've got the table, the query, and the reports done. And the last stage now, even though we set up our table, the database is actually no use unless we put the tables into the forms, so that obviously a person then can access the forms and change anything in the forms. So in order to create a form, we're going to come up here to the form wizard. Okay, it goes, what form do you want to create from which table? I've only got the one table, so customer table, bring everything over and go next. Next again, and you can give it a different name, and I go finish. And now my form is created. Now you can scroll here at the bottom, I should say, to check the records, but that's not really user friendly. I want to add some buttons in here. I want to work with the design a little bit better. So let me go into the design view to make a few changes. Okay, so come up here to home and view and go to the design view. Okay, move some of these bars down here so you can work with the form a little bit better. Okay, Up here, automatically, when you get into the design view, it opens up 3 tabs called Design, Arrange and Format. In the Design tab, there's labels, there's text, cool text things, there's buttons, etc. Now, so to drag on a button, we left click the button up here and then left click down here and release your mouse. And it automatically pops up this window. If this window doesn't automatically pop open for you, okay, in here in the drop down under the design menu, this option here is selected, use control wizards. If that's not selected for you, it means your control wizard won't open up for your button. So if you do create a button and this window doesn't pop open, just select that. But you can see mine was already selected, so it opened up. So let me draw that button again. So I drag the button on. What buttons do I need? So some of the most useful buttons are next record and last record. So I'm going to go to the next record. Do you want a picture or do you want it to say text? Now it's up to yourself, folks, whatever you want. Or you can browse if you want to design your own picture, that's fair enough. But you know what I mean, I usually use the icons here. So I'm just going to use the picture, go next and go finish. And there's my next button. Now it's not going to do anything until I change the view again, but let me pop in a few buttons. Let me create another button. And this time it's going to be the previous record. And finish. Okay, and again it's not going to do anything till I change the view, so I'm going to drag another button on. What are some other useful buttons? Here in record operations, add new records for useful. Okay, because I've kept with a picture all along, I'll go next and finish. If you're worried that the user won't know what this button is, just use a little text label up here and push it over it so the user knows what that button's doing. And ideally there's kind of 5 good buttons that you could have in each form. Back, next, add a new record, save a new record, delete a record, and obviously then there's obviously a close form as well. But I've only put 3 buttons on here. In order to see them working, I have to change the view and go back to form view. Okay, now because I haven't set up my form correctly, I have to do a little bit of scrolling here. I can go back and let me just change that straight away actually. So let me go back to design view. Okay, let me just move this over here to the right hand side. Okay, ideally I could move the bottom, but let me just pop these to the right hand side. Okay, I haven't put them in any way good now, but I've just put them in very quickly. So home again, view, and go back to form view. Now there's my buttons. And as you see now, those buttons, you just drag them on and they do everything that you want. Okay, this button then, if I click it, it's creating a new customer table for me. Okay, so it's doing everything that I want. And like I said, you should ideally have 4 to 5 buttons there. If I go back now to the design view, I can play around with this. So obviously I don't want that to say customer T. I probably want to say customer details. I can make this table a little bit bigger. You see how that's a light grey background? If you right click that there, you can change the colours, any colour you want. Okay, and then again you can right click down here. In order then to change certain colours with the buttons, all of that, if you right click down here and go to properties, okay, over here to the right hand side you can see there's a format bar. So let me bring that out a little bit. You can see here this back colour. There's loads of stuff you can do in here. Now that's a little bit dark, okay. If I was using such a dark background, obviously then I'd have to get all my text files here, or my text columns, and maybe go up here to format and put those white. If you're using a dark background, it should be light font, and vice versa. If you're using a light background, it should be a dark font. So maybe I might change that font there to black. And all of those there to deal with those are under the format, and if you don't find anything there, there's also background image. If you are using a background image, make sure to come over here to the right hand side, because when you bring in a background image, it tiles it, and there's an option in here on the right hand side to say no tiling, so you can turn that. And there's also no scrolling as well. There's other cool stuff here if you click on the buttons. Okay, you can change the back colour of your buttons to match whatever you need. Okay, so maybe I want it that colour. You can also have the hover colours, the press colours, so it's like the pseudocode in HTML, and you can change everything. Okay, and ideally you could put a picture up here as well. Okay, and another nice thing in here under the design tab, if you click down the drop down here, there's a rectangle tool, and what I might like to do is draw a little rectangle around my buttons. Okay, come up here to the format tab, go to the shape outline, go to the thickness of the line, maybe make it a little bit thicker, and maybe I'll put it white. Now my colours aren't fantastic, but it just illustrates that your buttons are over here to the right, and it makes it look a little bit better. Now those colours ideally don't work there, but we can mess around with the colours. So if I go back now to the view again, the form view, home view and form view, you can see my database is gaining a bit of shape, okay? So everything to do with the design of the form, you have to go into view and design view. You have to right click here, anywhere here, to go to properties or form properties, and then under here format, you can change anything that you want to change, okay? And once you're finished in, you can right click and close and save. What we haven't done is the navigational window, okay? Because if I was to come into your database now and open up your form, I'm like, that's fantastic, but I would like somewhere that stores, or like kind of like a website or navigational window, and it's very easy to do it. Let's right click and close this. Back here in the Create tab, if we go here to the navigation, it offers you some navigation systems or forms that you can use. I quite like this vertical tabs. So if you left click this, okay, and you can see I've closed everything else. I always like to close everything else before I create a new form. If you click in here, we could have like a welcome, or you could call that the home tab. Okay, let me create the new one here, or create the new one, I should say, customer, because we have a customer form now. Now, in order to link them, I need to go back in here to the design view. I'm going to click on this tab that says customer. Okay, I'm going to right click and go down to form properties. I'm going to come over here to where it says data tab. Okay, now I don't see anything yet, so sometimes I just need to left click back in customer again, and now I see navigational target name. In the drop down now should list all the forms I have, and I've only got the one form, and I left click that, and what that's doing is it's linking this customer button to my customer form, which I wanted to do. Sometimes something will show up here in the center. If it doesn't, go Control and S to save your form. Let's just call this navigation form, or we could call it home, okay, or no, just call it, or you could call it index as the very first page, and click OK. I'm going to right click and close this, and double left click index again. If I click on customer now, it's burning in that form I've created. Okay, so all I did there, folks, was I went to view, I went to design view. Okay, you can click in there and create any tabs you want. Say I had a supplier. If you left click, it'll keep creating as many tabs. But I left clicked in here. Okay, I went, if you don't see that table or this property sheet over to the right, just right click and go down to properties. If you don't see navigational target name, just left click back on the customer again, and then select the form you want to link it to. If you don't see it automatically, just right click and close the form, and then save it, and then it'll open it up again. And then customer is now brought in. And then what I also want to do is, instead of me going straight into the home, I would like to create a little welcome message. So what I could do for that very quickly is go to create a blank form, go into view, go into design view, go into the design tab, and use either a label or one of these. I like to use a label, and I might just put in something very quickly here. Welcome to everyone. You might say welcome to my, my database, etc. Let me save that and let me call it welcome. So I've just created a blank database. I'd probably put a picture in there of the company, a welcome message, and click OK. Now I haven't done anything magical with it. I'm going to go close it, go back to my index, come back to the design view in order to link it again. And now where you see this home, I'm going to right click it and go properties. In here now I'm going to link it to that welcome form. I'm going to right click, save my form, right click and close. And now when I go back to index, it has that welcome message. So ideally I'd like to see the logo, etc. there. Now, that's all looking fantastic. And you have it all done. But when I close out of this, and if I was to open it up again, this is what I would see. I'd have to go into your index, but how do I know that's your first page? So a lovely thing to do is to include a macro to have your form open up automatically. So you go to create, over here to the right hand side, macro. From the drop down, we're going to have it that it opens the form. So look for the open form. What form do you want to open up automatically? I want the index. Then you can go Control and S to save it. Now this is the key. You need to call it auto execute, all one word lowercase. So AUTOEXEC, all one word lowercase. If I go OK, now you can run it now, but let me just save my database and let me close out my database and let me open it up here again. And now it's automatically opened up my index. And that's everything that you need to know to create a simple database that has a table, a query, forms, a navigational form, and a macro to open up the form. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson, and thank you very much.